Hi everyone, welcome back to Somerset House Peer Exchange Upgrade Yourself. I'm Akocha, one of the young producers here at Somerset House. And yeah, today's event is going to be live streamed on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And if you would like to ask any questions for Iggy London, it may get read during the next hour. Please comment on one of our platforms using the hashtag Somerset House. Our creative career program supporting emerging new talent and offers access route into creative industries. Our Upgrade Yourself Creative Career has multiple strands supporting you both in real life and online. Keep an eye out for regular updates from inspirational talks from process-led workshops. And in 2021, we'll be relaunching the pioneering industry work placement program, as well as connecting you to industry creative professionals with networking events and peer exchange, led by members of Somerset House creative community and external partners and guests. All of our sessions are free to get involved with and primarily aimed at those 18 to 25, creating fresh talent development while diversifying the future workforce of the creative industry. Please sign up to a newsletter if you haven't already to keep informed at the bottom of the page at Somerset House website. Okay, so that's the housekeeping done. I hope everyone's been having as good as it can be lockdown. So today I'm really excited to be sharing this virtual space with Iggy London, a film director and poet who captures raw, thought-provoking narratives which often focus on a multitude of Black male experiences, which are not only visually timeless, but also highlight critical portrayals of many realities often less vocal within the mainstream lens. Please welcome Iggy London to the virtual space. Hey Iggy, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you, Akocha, for having me. Thank you, Somerset House, for having me as well. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you for joining. I'm so excited. How's your lockdown been?
It's been okay, you know. I think I've been just spending time just working and writing and not watching the news, not spending
Yeah, oh my
time
God.
trying to and like watching memes rather than anything. Just enjoy it, trying to like be as like positive as possible because I feel like yeah, we just come out this whole lockdown, so now I'm trying to be busy, I'm trying to get work done. I'm trying to like just be as productive as possible, I guess.
Ah, sounds good. Yeah, sounds definitely the right move of trying to be positive with like this chaos in the
Yeah.
background 24/7. But yeah, I guess without further ado, I'm so excited to see your presentation. But I'm going to leave the virtual stage now and it's all over to you. And I guess I'll see you at the end with some questions.
Sure, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, thank you everyone, and thank you, Kocha, for inviting me to speak today. I think I've followed Somerset House since 2008, 2016, when I first went to the Contemporary African Art Fair. So it's kind of like amazing. It's an honor to be able to like just chat with you and share my kind of work and what I've done to date. My name is Iggy London, as Akocha said, and I am a filmmaker, poet, writer, and yeah, my work largely focuses on like realism, stories that that are seldom told in kind of the mainstream media, and trying to capture a certain, I don't know, emotion or a certain moment in time that is really kind of human. The human conditioning is something that I really want to focus on and like to explore in my work. Um, I've been making films for like I think 4 or 5 years now, and it's been a kind of like crazy experience. I kind of first started working and doing like £50 short films and like trying to get as much people involved and getting like you know, your aunt, your uncle, your sister, your cousin, your neighbor's dog, just to like come together to make a film. And now I've been lucky enough to make films for different kind of platforms, like Nowness, Dazed, and as well as my own kind of personal projects and brand work as well with like Nike and Adidas, and looking to do much more kind of like commercial work as well. So it's been a crazy, weird experience, a fun one, and yeah, it's great to be able to just share with you kind of like my experience in terms of how I approach filmmaking, what I understand my filmmaking to be, what I see myself as an artist making, if I am considered an artist, and how best can I communicate, explore personal narratives. So yeah, in this presentation, I'll be discussing exactly that and explaining my creative process. I'll also be sharing with you some of like the main sort of creatives and artists I'm incredibly inspired by and have the benefit of being able to share my work alongside, and be able to actually just tell you kind of like my ways of making film, my ways of seeing my work and how I present an idea, which is actually just something that did not exist into something which is a full-fledged kind of film. Again, just to let you know, it's this is one of my first times of me being able to synthesize my work and put it in a body of like a presentation like this. So it's more so a reflection piece for me, as well it is as a kind of like kind of a learning experience for everyone that's watching. So next slide, please. And how I became a filmmaker, I think is really important to determine kind of like why I make film in the first place. Um, my love for film is deeply rooted in capturing moments in time and capturing emotions in time. Um, and it's something that I'm really proud of. I love realism. I think that realism is a perfect place to show a mirror to society and show a mirror to what's going on in society, especially given these times. And I think that yeah, it's my way of being able to kind of like make understand some of the things that go on in the world and be able to break it down. But I would say that me becoming a filmmaker wasn't a thing of exploration. It wasn't this idea of like, let me just go pick up a camera, let's start directing people, let me be a little bit bossy on set. It was more so out of necessity, and I'll explain to you what that means. Um, Growing up, I grew up in Newham, East London, and I had a fairly religious kind of like background. I went to Catholic school. I went to church every single Sunday, um, and yeah, I had a very Catholic upbringing. I went to St Bonaventure's in Newham. I then went to sixth form, Catholic sixth form. I went to university, studied law, and I think I'd done all the good stuff, the very like um, ordinary, mundane things that you need to do in life. I don't feel like my life was very like particularly interesting or like captivating. I think my parents coming from Nigeria in 1993 moved here, and then had me in 1994, was like it was a big transition stage in their lives, and something obviously me growing up in London was a whole kind of like a whole bubble for them. But for me, I think growing up was fairly kind of like basic. But one thing that I always thought, or one thing that I always was told when growing up, I was like, I would always just stare at people, and I'd always watch people's behavior. I was a fairly quiet kid, um, and I just stared at people. I used to stare at TV, watch like the most like adult films, and like watch like the most like films of people in the on the kind of the edge of society, and I was amazed by that. I was amazed by their way of living, and the fact that, and yeah, when I first kind of like saw film and saw cinema, I was like, what? Like I was so amazed. I think I watched Stuart Little, and in cinema, I think my uncle took me to Stuart Little, and I watched that, and I was just like, these people are so different from me. They're so different from how I see my world, and to a certain degree, I desired their lives. I desired like who they were about, why they did what they did, and how they lived in these elaborate worlds. And I guess for many years, cinema was surreal in the sense of being able to take you out of your now, take you out of your present, and take you into a place which is incredibly like just otherworldly. Um, and I think being able to see people and seeing subjects in that way was obviously like a great opportunity for me to see other worlds and other lives, and I desired that. Sorry, bear with me. Sorry, bear with me. Yeah.
Sorry, now I'm off mute now. I think that might
Yeah.
have been a fire alarm. Everything okay?
Yeah, all good, all good.
All good, perfect. Sorry. All right, cool. I'll jump out of the screen.
Thank you. So yeah, and then I think sorry about that, guys, but basically, I always sort of saw different lives and different stories being told, but I never saw my own. And I feel like at the age of 22, I basically had enough of watching other people's lives being told on cinema. Obviously, or on TV. I grew up watching Grange Hill, Hollyoaks, and films like that. And so, like, I felt as though the TV industry and the film industry weren't doing enough to be able to represent people who looked like me. And therefore, children like myself weren't able to reimagine themselves in other different scenarios and situations and remove themselves other than from their reality. So I feel like the bigger conversations when I was at university were like more so about like how can I best tell real stories? How can I best tell real stories of people that look like me, and have they been told? And if they haven't, how best can I do that? And Seeing blackness in cinema and like being able to create stories which impact people on not just like I can see like myself in that person, or I can see the fact that they're black and therefore I can relate, but more so in like their actual story and the emotions that's being told. And so yeah, that kind of brings me nicely to Black Boys Don't Cry. It's my first ever film that I made. I legit made it on like £60, and it was just a whole bunch of people that really helped and to nurture that kind of idea. It first started from a poem that I wrote in university about the kind of like the restraints of masculinity at the time. And for me, it was at the height of the conversations around masculinity. It was at that height where films like Moonlight were being told or being released, and I had a poem that I wanted to create into a film. So I gathered a whole bunch of people, and I also put myself in that film, and it was almost like just like a conceptual art film about the typical like the stereotypes of masculinity and challenging them. So each and every character that you're seeing now was a different person. It was like different emotions and they represented different emotions and different kind of like perspectives. And joining all those together, they formed the black man or they formed the array of varieties of black kind of existence and black emotions that were being told. And I feel like that was kind of like something really important for me at that time. And next slide. And I then did Fatherhood, which is I would say like it's a sequel to Black Boys Don't Cry. Kind of group them together. I don't necessarily see Black Boys Don't Cry on its own. I see it kind of like together with Fatherhood, and it was also on a budget, like legit getting everyone together to jump on board to do this. I was working with an amazing crew. Stefan Knight was a cinematographer. I worked with Joral, who was the photographer. So many amazing people who I love and respect, and I really care about, were involved in this kind of making this film. And it was basically a film about. Growing up, someone always told me that, who used to ask me, so do you live with your mum? Like, also, like, where's your mum's house? Or like, oh, where do you live? Do you live with your mum? And I found it weird that they never went, do you live with your parents? And there was this notion that like black parents are always kind of like separated, and also black fathers are never in the picture. And obviously, my father has always like been in my kind of like life, and so what I wanted to do was tell a story about the design between fathers and their children, and that connection that cannot be broken because of separation, and how by virtue of birth and by virtue of fatherhood, you are connected to something that is bigger than you. Like that connection is bigger than you. That connection is far greater than you could ever imagine. And if you were to understand that, then you would understand your role as a father. That you don't have to be perfect. That you don't have to be, the most, have everything correct and have everything right. It was just a it was an homage to fatherhood and an homage to being a parent. And next slide. And I think fatherhood. After that, I made a film called Velvet, and that was my first ever commission. So, and it was a budget, like it was actually budget. Like I got a producer. Like previously, I produced, written, directed all of my work, and so it was kind of refreshing to be able to have a whole crew that I now work with still to this day, who kind of realize my dream and realize my understanding of things. So just to keep it 100, I didn't become, whilst working on those films, I actually didn't like become a full-time filmmaker. I was working elsewhere in a different industry, and yeah, like I was kind of like happy with my films. Obviously, I wanted to make it big, and like I wanted to like tell stories. I wanted to, make the best films. And whilst I was at that job, I was told that someone I knew passed away. They passed away to knife crime, and the person was like a huge kind of like character. Like he was just someone who embodied like success, and I kind of saw him as like this like figure who, no matter what, wherever you're from, you can make it. And I saw him, he used to be a model, so like I saw him on like billboards and like huge like campaigns and newspapers, and I was just amazed by his growth. And so yeah, when I heard he passed from this kind of like incident, I was like, yeah, I was taken aback. And it made me realize that regardless of who you are or where you're from, like a tragedy could happen like that. But what was seldom taught is that we're always kind of seen in society, like always we see stories whereby we're always told, oh, like, you see headlines of people losing their life to knife crime. It's just like gang violence, or like kid or like 15-year-old knifed by a gang, and it's always related to gangs, and it's always related to death and loss and sadness. But it never kind of like tilts the camera or tilts the perspective or to people and communities who are related to that person. And if you take away the knife, if you take away the perpetrator, the gore, the most important thing is how many years of life that person had. And it's so kind of like reduced to the end of his life, or the end so I kind of wanted to make a film that was an homage to this community, and how if you remove someone within that community, there's a loss there. So it kind of starred this Michael, an amazing actor, who was this like happy-go-lucky Billy Elliot character who danced and moved, and he wants to go out, but yet he understands that there are systems in place to restrict his kind of like him going out, because his mom knows the community, and she knows his life is so important, and yet she wants to kind of like curtail his sadness, and so she keeps him home. And it's about how like one day he kind of like goes away, and he gets a chance to actually go to this party, but he never gets there because his life is taken. But we don't see the perpetrator, we don't see the knife, and it's all through dance. Quabs is an amazing artist, and he basically was kind of made the lyrics and sung on the track that was in the film, and also the father composed the track, an amazing duo. Together they just made something beautiful. And like I worked with Matt Taylor, who's the cinematographer. I worked with my first AD, who's still my first AD now, Elle Lotherington, and just a whole bunch of people who basically made this happen. A story of like of something which was very truthful, and something that happened in my life or experience or I saw, and then I could make it into this, like, if you were to take everything out, could you see this person? Could you see him as a human? And I wanted to showcase that human condition. So yeah, we're gonna see that film soon. But I just want to go next to one other kind of like music video I did for a track called A Prayer by Junior Williams. Similar, I think I love the idea of being able to tell like sorrow and sadness. I don't know why, like I just did it. That's something that I really like to tell and I like to showcase in my work. And identity and community, and how like certain people's lives are basically through no fault of their own, they're so restricted, and their emotions are broken, and they haven't been able to make the right amends. And I thought cinema or film I was able to create that idea through my work. So yeah, this was a music video, and I think that I don't approach my ideas as like, oh, this is a music video, and therefore I need to have like, you know, like fake money and like people twerking. Like, as in like my work will always stay the way it is. It will always have this idea of like story and an identity and community within it. So that's something that I really wanted to embody in my first kind of like commissioned music video. Junior Williams is an amazing artist. I actually love his work, and I love his music. And so it was an honor to be able to basically direct his first music video. I did that. So yeah, that's it. And then I did my next short narrative film, my first ever narrative film, Sucker Punch. If you go to the next slide. Yeah, and Sucker Punch was something which I was also amazed by, because when you're creative and when you're like making anything you're making, regardless whether it's like, I don't know, a book or like a film or whatever, or art, you get within this kind of like media world, a lot of people kind of want to get you on to do a paid post, or like to do like influencer work, and that's something which I personally have done in the past, and I just wanted to kind of explore this idea of like, well, what am I being real? Am I being true to myself if I'm having to I'm only doing this to sell this product? And like, I wanted to tell a story about how like what is true, what is media, what is actually media, and if that's a truthful medium, and how can we trust on media and so forth. And so therefore I did a film that basically tells a story of a young girl who goes around breaking the fourth wall and basically speaking to the audience about how like we're being told as a community that we need to remove ourselves from our mobile phones and like log off, and because it's damaging to our world and damaging to our lives. And she speaks so earnestly about it. She literally almost is this like Martin Luther King figure who's out here trying to change the world. And then we realize the whole thing's an ad for a drink, energy drink. And it's basically trying to explain to the world that, or to its commentary on how even when we think that we're doing something which is good for social change, the powers that be are the ones who are controlling it. And if we're doing it for brands, if we're doing it for corporations, we just need to be mindful. So the question is not necessarily like we shouldn't do it. I don't believe I'm being political in that way. I don't think it has nothing to do with you have free will to do so. But it's more so about like we should be mindful about what the truth is and how we are disseminating the truth. So yeah, and I'm also now going to play Father Velvet, a film that I just spoke about with who features Michael, and is music by Quabs, composed by Father, and yeah, just here it is for you to enjoy.
Father, Father, help, it's happening. You forgot to save me instead. Now my thoughts on what I should have said. thought I'd pray to you to save his head. Never again. Never again. Never again. We go to great things, heal you, 'cause the world waits to need you. We go to great things to heal you, 'cause the world waits to need you. Son, you chose your soul to go to waste. I don't think it's 'cause of our mistakes. When I am, I swear he hesitates. Swear I've seen the doubt upon his face. Again and again.
Thank you. So yeah, maybe I shouldn't have played that so early on in the presentation, but yeah, that's essentially my first ever like commission piece, explaining kind of like that story about knife crime, but also that loss in someone. And it's like, I think one of the words that Cobb says is, we go to great lengths to shield you, and that's the whole thing about, if a young person loses their life, I think the newspapers, media don't realize that there was great lengths for that person to stay alive, that great lengths for that person to be to exist. And sometimes there are communities, there are villages, there's people at play who try to safeguard those people. And so like, we shouldn't always just think about these people as like this one singular story, which is in relation to their kind of like knife crime, but in relation to their loss. But I think it's more so celebrating their life, and how their life is really important. And yeah, so I wanted to, I think it's only fair and only right that I would basically mention some of the filmmakers who've kind of decided to also change the status quo. And I'm really excited that I'm able to work and share my work alongside them. And they've shaped narratives and things like that. So I will say like just a whole bunch of people that come to mind. I think there's a person called Nadira Amrani who's really helped me and to support my kind of like career, my understanding of storytelling. Akinola Davis, a a director that focuses a lot on the African diaspora. Caleb Femi, I look at his work and I just see bravery, and I just see the youth, and I just see London City. Jen Nkiru, an amazing artist and filmmaker, a lot to do with the Black identity and like Black elasticity. Stephen Isaac Wilson, Simona Akinola, Oliver Packham, Kwame Asante. There's just so many different people that I would love to just basically mention and share, because it's only right that we do so, because they are also people who are changing the status quo and are doing it successfully in this kind of like film industry. And I just kind of wanted to say that, that quote from Michaela Cole, if you don't show it, it will be lost. And it's true. Like, we have a duty as filmmakers, as artists, as creatives, to tell stories of the time, because if you don't, they will be lost. And you don't know how important they are because you think that it's now. And as filmmakers, you want to make the most amazing, surreal, crazy things, but you actually could find more kind of response, I guess, or it depends on what you do. I think that I shouldn't be the person to tell you what to do, but I would always say that filmmaking is a great way to telling people's stories in a really authentic way and being able to shine a light to some of the things that people go through. And so, yeah, I just want to go to the next slide into narratives. My relationship with filmmaking and social realism is something intrinsic to me, because I guess it's a way of turning back the clock, if you will. If you go back to the previous slide to narratives. It's a way of turning back the clock, because I thought that for a long time nobody like me was able to. I didn't see myself in film. I didn't see myself in cinema. I didn't see myself in media. And then when I did, I just saw a whole load of people who just want to share Black stories and Black identities and like POC people just everywhere, without understanding the narrative. And I feel as though like I should be able to look at a film and look and understand that on that there's a line, and people facing the camera are people that look like me, but also if you turn around that camera, people that were in the making of making that film also look like me. And so that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to really be able to project a certain, not a singular kind of idea and identity. And yeah, I think that was really important to me. And another thing I think that I wanted to share with you, because I think I was reading kind of an interview with Arthur Jaffa, and I think if there's anything that I would like to share in this piece, I wanted to let you know this. It's important for me to remove people within their subject matter and their subject position into another person's subject matter and subject position. And film legit has the ability to do that. Film can actually do that. So when people are coming and telling me, how do I make my film? How do I make this music video great? Blah, blah, blah. How do I make this? And I think I'm so over the idea of like genres in the first place. Like, I don't know if I can swear, but like take away those genres. Like, I'm so tired of everyone saying I need to fit in experimental, I need to be that music video director. You're a director, you're an artist, you're a creative, and therefore it's important that you understand that all you're literally doing, or I think the most important thing that you're doing, is removing people from their subject matter and their subject position and taking them into so they can understand another subject position and another person's subject matter. Yeah, and film has the ability to do that. I think it's the greatest thing that film can do, because even if one doesn't feel anything by that film I just showed you, Velvet, one can at least acknowledge a person's subject matter and subject position. And even if you acknowledge that person's person, if you acknowledge that existence, therefore you appreciate them and you understand that they live and breathe, and you understand more about them. And that's what film is. It literally is taking people out of their subject matter and their subject story. Like, I'm not focusing on my bills, what I have to do, blah, blah, tomorrow. Like, I can literally just like go into this space and just watch this story. And I think that's what the benefit and the success of Small Acts, a series, an installation of films made by Steve McQueen, I think I watched Lovers Rock a couple of days ago, and I just want to like make it clear that like the film that like the whole film is kinetic, like in terms of its energy and how it kind of like showcases an emotion and a feeling and existence. um is something which is so beautiful, um and very empowering for people. And I think there's a people kind of go, oh yeah, like it was beautiful and it was beautifully shot, and I agree, it was amazing. But also, what makes it so important is because it takes people out their subject matter and their subject position and puts it to another person's subject matter and subject position. And so, like, it's great because it's almost a reflection of British identity. Like you're acknowledging, even if you don't feel those people's stories, you acknowledge the fact that they exist. And so it being on like flipping BBC iPlayer, like on primetime TV or whatever, is amazing because people now, Britain has to acknowledge that these are the stories that form part of British history. And I think that that's the thing that's so amazing. So when you're looking as creatives to like go, okay, what story should I tell? Should I watch another person's story, or should I like basically take I'm a lover of film, and I see film through film, so I like stories, I like Wong Kar-wai, I like being able to create those references and use it in my own work. But you have to understand that in order for you to actually make something amazing, or when it comes to a narrative, I think the best way to do that is to take people out, and that's something intrinsic to you. And so yeah. And I just wanted to go, to that Spike Lee quote, and it's something which I kind of like I kind of think about all the time. People who have faults are a lot more interesting than people who are perfect, and that's really kind of like the reason why I make film, because I want people to understand that if you are the imperfect nature of humans and human conditioning, and therefore if you're able to understand that, you're able to sort of acknowledge those people and acknowledge that they exist, and therefore we live, I would say, a probably better life in doing so. And I just want to go to the next slide about the creative process. Yeah, so yeah, the creative process. I wanted to kind of take you on a like this kind of like journey in terms of like creating an idea and formulating that into a film. And I'm taking the example of a film that I did recently with Nowness called Rite of Passage. And it's one of my favorite kind of films. I feel like it's one where I really honed in like my story and what I wanted to tell, and took all these elements I did from Black Boys Don't Cry, Fatherhood, Velvet, to create this like body of work that I feel like is best reflects me. Next slide. And so yeah, this is kind of still from Rite of Passage. It is like I got the brief quite early on this year, and the brief was basically, we want you to make a film, and we need you to include 2 bikes. And apart from that, we just want it to be a story. Like you basically do whatever you want to do. And yeah, they probably know that I wouldn't do anything I don't want to do, and I'm like really clear as a filmmaker that I'm not about to entertain and address anything that I think lacks story and lacks emotion, or lacks anything that doesn't take people to another place. Because yeah, that's just not me as a filmmaker. I'm quite clear as to what I want to do and how I want to see my work and how I view my work. And I feel it's important as well, as young filmmakers, like always try to strive for your own vision and try to strive for your own output. What do you see your work looking like, and how do you best reflect it through film? And so yeah, like that was kind of like a thing. It was really an open brief, and it was about bikes. And I remember like I didn't basically ride bikes when I was young. I didn't really care about bikes too tough, but I was just kind of really inspired by like riding your first bike, what the feelings that you have, and how you kind of like, what does it mean? And like when people kind of like look at when they first ride a bike, they think about when they're a kid. Okay, what were their experiences that you were feeling when you were a kid? And this idea of coming of age kind of like struck me. And like this young, I like the idea in my films that a lot of characters within my films, they portray a certain level of innocence, but also a certain level of maturity. They're wiser beyond their age, but yet they're a little kid. And I like that. I like to explore that so much in my film. So yeah, I had this idea, but I didn't really know how to formulate it too tough. I was like, yeah, this is cool. I want to explore with this emotional storytelling, but I don't know how I'm actually going to present it. Yeah, go to the next slide. And then I just watched loads of films, really. Films that kind of inspired me. Davion is an amazing film. I urge everyone to watch it. It's about a young kid, a 13-year-old kid who called Davion, and his brother passes away, and he basically struggles with like life with his loss of his brother, and how he kind of like goes into a gang, goes into the Bloods, and like, yeah, it's just about his story and how he kind of like deals with the emotions he's trying to convey and break down, even with trying to be able to fit into a group. And then we kind of go further on, and you see how he kind of like the trauma or the loss of his brother is something that he's physically having to go through these kind of like the things that he does in the film. It's really simple, and the way it's shot is stunning because it just focuses on him, and you can see that it's just such a what he goes through is really powerful. Next slide. Yeah, this is another still from Davion, and how like he's trying to prove to like the gang members that he's like he deserves to be a part of the gang. He's a part of the group, and he's kind of like wanting to be in this because he wants to kind of like feel this loss that he feels inside. And I find it so interesting because like it's the first time that I'm experiencing it from an emotional perspective, or like when people talk about gangs and talk about like, you know, gang culture, we talk about like things that happen in America, like how crazy that is that people can come to a place, or like how likely it is for people to want to be part of a group, to feel that level of that brotherhood that they lost. So yeah, it was really interesting. And next slide. And this is another film that I was inspired by when creating the treatment and creating like what and doing the shot lists and things like that. And it was Ballast, and it's a story about, again, I don't know why, but like loss always seems to be something that I always gravitate to, and it's basically about this film about this young kid who, after losing his father, kind of like gets into this whole kind of like rut, and you can see that he's in a rut, and like how like he sort of like maneuvers around the world, like moving around his world with his mother, and his mother's a single parent, and his uncle he doesn't talk to, and like he's held at gunpoint. There was just so many different like extremities, but the one thing that came down to it was just that he was grieving. And I wanted to like tell those kind of emotional sides to him as in my character or my characters. So yeah, it was a great kind of like inspiration. And next slide. And kind of like when I first, I don't know for you guys, but like when as I said, I'm a lover of film, and I see film through film. And so like when I'm looking at work, I'm like inspired by, I always look at like these really little things. So like I touch upon like ideals of like masculinity in my films, sorrow, singularity, and loneliness can be a case, like, or just like existing by yourself. I really like to play with that with like working class cultures, and like certain kind of like sort of motifs to that person's life, and I try to build that from the very kind of like the start. And so I can think about images that I want to create. I want to create like cluttery like little bits of like where the air freshener, or like a little ornament, or like a stereo player, or like a music player, and like mugs. I want that to be something which is you feel that this life has been lived, rather than it being glossy. I don't want it to be glossy at all. And I don't really like glossy work. I like the idea of being able to tell a true story. You can do that on a huge budget. You can still be, you know, very real on a huge budget. It doesn't mean that you're working on like these small kind of like tiny films. You can make something big as well. That's important to know. And so yeah, that was kind of like my kind of, when my image making, I wanted to see things which felt very real and like and honest. Next slide. And yeah, like I like the idea of like outdoors and playing with like searching and exploration. As you can see for some of these images, you don't feel like they're in a place or time. They're literally just existing. And I don't want people to go, oh, that was London, that was like London Bridge. I want people to kind of see these people within their removed from their own lives, so that they're able to much better understand the emotional journey that you're going to be going through. Next slide. And like, yeah, there's Sonda, like some beautiful music video I loved. There's like that the bottom left shot was from a commercial. Top right is from Virtuous Circle, a music video that was really inspiring for this music this short film. And then again another kind of still from Virtuous Circle. Excellent. I like the idea of playing. I like the idea of playing with youth and making sure that it felt youthful. And so this playfulness was something that I wanted to explore, like through outdoors and things like that. I wanted to be quite natural. So I kind of I looked at references which are like more so playing with like nature and like outside again, taking people away from their context. So yeah, next slide. And like, yeah, I think that this is probably my favorite slide I've with it. And it's because it just shows like freedom. And I think that freedom is seldom kind of catered or given to young men. And I think that's, or people in general. I feel like as a young kid, I was always told that I had to like just grow up really quickly. I had to like just understand the world. And I kind of did want to grow up really quickly. I didn't actually want to be a kid, but I really just wanted to focus more so on like the freedom and being able to go anywhere and see anything with your bike. Next slide. And so I don't know if this is something that you guys do, and I don't know kind of like the stages within your career or the people that are watching, but like it's really important that you kind of like hone in on your look and feel, and that's why where you look at references, you know, what is it going to look like? How is it going to like play out? Like how are you gonna what do you want people to feel, but also how is it going to look? How are you going to make it? What's the textures like? So I shot on 16mm film. I wanted to shoot on 35. It was too expensive, and yeah, like it was. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that there was a constant feel of movement and a constant feel of like journey and like going to another place like you would do on a bike. And so I kind of like it. I really enjoyed Tree of Life. It's a film that really is just really focusing on constant movement and constant like pushing towards somewhere else, or like the camera just has the same almost movement as your eyes would. So it was really kind of like a great reference for me. Next slide. Casting. I'm going to tell you more about casting through the production side that I'm going to explain. But like for me, it was super important that these people got along. That these two brothers that were coming together to, one of them is trying to curtail his brother and restrict his brother from like, you know, going to the ends of the earth and trying to, you know, to reach for the stars, and the other kid just wants to be free but understands the reason why he does it. And there was just like friction between them and this tension, but we understand why. And yeah, and that's kind of, I really wanted to make sure that these people are really comfortable with each other, but they also emulated that idea of freedom, that idea of going out of your comfort zone, being able to dare to dream, to do, to be indifferent to what other people have done before. Next slide. Yeah, again, I didn't know, and this is just like I'm taking extraction from my actual treatment that I wrote. So yeah, this is me just discussing. I want them to be larger than life, and in order to be really quite authentic, I wanted to make sure that they done it justice, and therefore I wanted people who weren't necessarily actors. I wanted the people who just lived their life, and like, you know, I don't care about whether you acted before or not. I just want to make sure that you're able to tell a story. Next slide. Sound was really important, and similar to to the film Velvet, I was obsessed with just making sure that there was elements of strong like music, and that music would just pull you through. I'm inspired by Moonlight, obviously. Like I think you're probably gonna see it and think that there was definitely like similarities to that sound in Moonlight. And yeah, spoken word. I kind of like really like the idea of like utilizing spoken word, because like going back to my previous film Fatherhood and Black Boys Don't Cry, I just wanted to make sure that that was such a strong piece. And yeah, production. Yeah, in terms of production and going back to making personal narratives, I really like the idea of being able to um, just audition as many people as possible. So we auditioned like probably 100, 150 people that they basically made self tapes. And what I did to like make sure like I wanted to see or capture a moment, or I don't know what it was, but I just wanted to capture whatever that they were bringing. I wrote a poem, um, also titled "The Rite of Passage," and I sent it to all of the people who were auditioning, and I asked them basically to like perform that poem on camera. And there were a whole bunch of people that came back, and the way they did, like you had people who literally just read it, and it was like, yeah, it was cringeworthy, but you had other people who were like, you could tell that they lived those lives. You could tell that they lived a life, and I wanted that. I wanted when they read it to feel my idea of freedom, but this like the freedom that is almost restricted, and the reason why you care for that freedom is because you've been restricted for such a long time. So yeah, we literally auditioned loads of people, and there was only I think about like 10 handful of people that I really wanted to take forward, and I basically interviewed them. I think for me, it's not necessarily about whether you've done acting in the first place or whether you can ride a bike. It's just, are you interested? Do you have the energy to take this story forward? Do you bring something to it? And like, I don't know what that is, but it's the excitement to understand that thing or the excitement that you have that makes me want to cast you. And that was really important for me when I interviewed them, because that was another process of documentary. Like you'll see in the film, it feels quite documentary, because essentially I was just asking them questions, because I was trying to understand exactly what these characters would do. So I asked them like, when was the first time you rode a bike? What was the first time what was the first thing that you were like really like passionate about? Like, tell me your first memory. And those type of answers I also like, or like their feedback I actually put in my actual film, not in like a literal way, but more so in like just like utilizing different things, utilizing like a tennis ball, or like little posters, and just that I did how to build this person. And then production as well was like just like really great. I loved working with them. We did a 2-day shoot in the middle of nowhere, and it was just like the best ever thing. And the composer was amazing for my post production, and I worked with amazing, Bob Lewis is an amazing composer, which I absolutely love, and he just smashed it with this. And I worked with the same old editor that I worked with such a lot for like a couple of years, and so it definitely felt right. It definitely felt, at the end of it, I was like, I felt great, like to achieve it and to make it happen. And yeah, I think that's really it. So I'd like to just play Rite of Passage now, so you guys can see it, and you can tell me what you think. Yeah.
There was never a time when we saw eye to eye. When you wrote, I rioted. When you spoke, I silenced. Fist to chest, we each drew breath, struggling to make peace with the world. I guess kinship never came naturally to me, but I promise to be your guardian. So let us begin this rite of passage. Hey, yo! I can't, man. Well, get in the middle, man. Defend yourself, man. Raise your arms up, bro. Now get round. Yeah? Get your arms up. Yeah, quicker. Yeah, defend yourself, man. Put your hands up, man. Stand tall. Don't give a full head of hair and some disrespect.
What do you mean? I called him out. Yeah? Yeah? You must done.
What I said to you, bro.
What?
Freedom is wisdom. Is danger.
Oh, you're killing me, bro. You're killing me. Oh.
Come on, man. Calm down, bro. No, listen, calm down.
Yo, man, keep up.
What do you mean you keep up, bro?
Oh, you can't ride a bike.
I can't ride a bike. Giants, come on.
Where-
Hey,
where's
look,
the no hands
one
then?
hand, man.
See that? Relax. Relax.
Woo!
There was never a time where we saw eye to eye. When you wrote, I rioted. When you spoke, I silenced. Fist to chest, we drew breath, struggling to make peace with the world. I guess kinship never came naturally to me, but I promised to be your guardian. So let us begin this rite of passage.
On mute. I'm back
Yeah,
now.
can you?
Thank you so much for that amazing presentation, and thank you for being so genuine and authentic, as well as going into so much depth about every particular segment of your practice. And yeah, just very inspiring. And I've got like a range of questions. Hopefully, we can get through all of them. But I think I just want to start with the quote I saw. People who have faults are a lot more interesting than people who are a lot more interesting than people who are perfect. And I was like, ain't that the truth? And I just thought that is such an interesting quote I see so clearly reflected in your work. And I guess going on from that, I noticed another particular cue throughout a lot of your visual styles, and that's the repetition of the color blue. And if that's in the hue, the sky, the clothing, or the background, I was wondering if this was an intentional symbolic purpose to it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think there's definitely different sort of colors that are reflected in my work, and I think that I'm very particular on my type of colors and my color referencing. But blue is definitely something which always keeps on recurring, and I think it's because it's my favorite color, so that's why. But also, I think there's always this, like, when I was growing up, this idea of like blue, and like blue is for boys, pink is for girls, and I kind of wanted just to subvert. Okay, if blue is for boys, let's subvert what blue means, and therefore blue can still remain for boys, but like let's just change it up. Let's just change up what that, by creating these colors and these stories within them. You could help define what like that means further. So I guess it's more so just like yeah, like definitely associated to a certain mood, a certain like it just reminds me, I don't know, it gets me calm. I feel like it's a representation of calm. But yeah, like definitely something that I try to emulate throughout my work. Yeah.
Interesting, real cool. And I guess my next question is, what was your earliest memory using any video or photo technology, and which may have been a pivotal moment for your career? This could have been when you were a kid or when you were studying. When did you pick up a camera or a video camera and use it and think, we're onto something here?
I don't know. Actually, I do. I used to like be obsessed with YouTube, like absolutely obsessed with YouTube, and like I had like a little camera. I decided to like what's it called, like just record myself and record like different stories, me going about. I think I went with like to Cambridge, I went to Oxford Circus, and I used to get this little camera and just record like my story, like everything. So one of the days, I think in school, like someone took the camera and started recording a video of me in product design and a bunch of my kind of like classmates, and I think one of them was we were just like going about, and I remember just being like silly and dumb and just like cussing another guy that basically didn't hand in his coursework in or whatever. And I just remember that's my first ever memory of just like recording or being involved in camera, or like recording time and memories and moments. And it's weird to see it because I literally have aged mad, but it's just a reminder of like I guess the youth that I'm trying to emulate in my work.
Interesting, yeah, and I think that's really clear. My next question is, you touched on your presentation in regards to how you often mirror your own experiences into your art. So I'm interested, being a recent graduate myself, to ask, when studying, which if I'm right wasn't inherently a course, was there an ongoing interest in resolving blackness, masculinity, heritage, and truth through graphic devices, either post, pre, or before study? So, like, how did you sort of get to your distinctive style?
Yeah, I think that for me it was when studying, I didn't really like, because I studied law and like I went into that kind of like profession, so I never really found ways to like to tell like stories of like what I really wanted to tell. I think that, the way that I sort of see it is that when exploring these stories and when exploring poetry, I feel like I was able to tell my story more by writing poetry and like writing my own experiences. And I think through that, that's when I was actually able to study and explore the stories of others. And so, yeah, I think it was more so post at university when I was actually understanding, like, oh, I can actually create stories which are like really about me and my community and like what I care about. And also the fact that there were so many other filmmakers that I joined and I was able to work with. And Nadir Amani had like a film collective, the director collective, that we literally just like in a WhatsApp group, and we just spoke about films. And then obviously, you had like people like Steve McQueen who done 12 Years a Slave, and you had like Barry Jenkins, and there were just all these other kind of like filmmakers who were making stories about the human condition, but also about like stories that haven't been told before. And I was more so inspired by that, and that's when I feel like I found my real art and my real kind of love for filmmaking. I think it was just through my poetry and through my writing and through seeing other people make work similarly that I decided to actually go forth and find my distinctive style.
Interesting. No, that's really cool. So it sounds very much both organic, community-based in regards to like you had people you were in contact with, but it was also having people who looked like you producing work which was similar to you. I think that's really interesting because I think that actually resonates with me a lot in regards to like when you see people create work which speaks to you, it does make you just want to get out there and do it yourself.
Yeah.
And my next question is slightly a little bit longer. So I was watching Fatherhood, and this is basically in regards to the purpose of your work. And I was watching Fatherhood, and I remember feeling goosebumps. And I think sometimes that can be the most powerful thing a piece of art can do to a being. And as a Black individual myself, inheriting my Nigerian diaspora from my father, I saw myself in this particular piece of work, which I can imagine many other individuals also saw themselves in the same light. So I guess I want to ask, when creating these intimate narratives and forms of visual realism and poetry, can it be suggested that they serve a bigger social purpose in allowing Black men in particular to be reminded that their stories are visible as well as being part of a much larger community than themselves, allowing viewers to be positioned directly into the narratives at play?
Yeah, 100%. I think that's totally right. I think that through my work, I want to tell people that their stories matters first, and they don't have to look to cinema, to blockbusters, to Marvel movies to figure out what they need to make. They can look within themselves to tell out their own specific singular style and memory and time. And that is probably the best thing to do, because essentially you've had all your time to, as a man or as a Black man, to be able to think and to understand the existence of Black masculinity, Black manhood, Black fatherhood, Black existence, just Black everything, right? Blackness in general, right? And so because of that, you're best kind of like placed to tell those stories, but yet those stories are seldom told by those people. And so like by putting those people within the narrative, by telling people that your stories matter, you're able to actually understand or to tell people that therefore their work and how they create work, their process and how they create their process and everything about it is intrinsic to them. And like, I can't take my work, I can't take my I'm from Edo State in Nigeria. I can't take that from my work because it's so inspired by like my work is so inspired by my heritage. And even if it is like the tiniest things, you can see that it's part of my kind of like my DNA. My style is me, and me, I'm the style, and my film's the style, and me. And I think that like it helps to tell a better picture, but also you can't rip yourself out of the narrative. You can't rip yourself out of the film. The film. You have to put your own narrative and your own story to it. You can't. There's no way you can do that. I don't see myself restricting myself and pulling myself out that narrative. Even if I'm doing a commercial, even if I'm doing a feature film, I see it's being so intrinsic to what I'm giving to the world.
Interesting. And I guess on that same note of how you're saying you are so a part of the work, and like you're saying, like the work is basically a part of your DNA. I guess when you're using these range of poetic mediums, if that is directing, filming, writing, poetry, I'm interested in how you use these forms to allow you to be in a space where you're both vulnerable and brave, and why that's important to you.
I just think if you're going to be a filmmaker, you're going to have to be vulnerable, because essentially the film didn't exist without like at all. Like the film doesn't exist, and you're literally creating something. I always see it like you're creating a baby, and and then once you let that go, you just, as soon as it's done, you have to let that go. Like that film, all my films I've ever done, they're not mine anymore. So I think it's hugely important that I realize that I have to be very honest and rely on people that are also being honest to create the most meaningful type of work. I don't change my crew. That's too tough. I don't like to change it because I'm such a, like, for me as well, like, I'm honest, and like I think I'm honest. But I think that I have to be very vulnerable because I have to be, and it comes from a need. I think it's a necessity. It goes back to this idea of necessity. Me making film was necessary to create my story, or to create stories that looked like mine. And so, like, it was important for me that I had to dare to dream, I had to dare to, like, be a little bit more vulnerable and open to people, so people could understand my story, and I can better reflect the people who look like me, who are just watching it, that they can resonate with that film.
Interesting. Really, really inspiring. And I guess my next question is more about your practice. So when you're saying you have to basically be extremely vulnerable, I guess when you are working on set or making long-term projects or larger projects, then might have large projects which might be larger than they originally started. I'm interested in how when you're often in front of the camera and also behind it, how do you work with other creatives to ensure that your pieces reach a particular vision?
Um, um, I think I don't know how I do it. I think that I think I try to maintain a friendship, or like a trust within my with it on my sets. Sometimes my sets aren't the most comfortable place. I kind of reject the idea that a set needs to be comfortable and you need to be in a comfortable environment. I think it's important that you understand that there's a level of trust, even if sometimes you're pushing yourself to the absolute widths. But I think for me, when it comes to the pre-production process, that's where we can really tell people. I can really be able to understand my vision, explain my vision to other people. I write loads of mood boards, like loads of different briefs. I like have calls and stuff like that. But also, the first question that I kind of ask them, or probably the last question actually, is, and that's the most important one, is like, what do you want to do? I think that Kelly Sinclair Smith is my producer, is my production designer. She's an amazing production designer, great friend, and she kind of asks me all the time, like, oh, like, what's your vision and what's your story? And I can tell you that. But it only goes so far because you need to understand mine. But also, I need to understand what your work is. So it's important for me to, like, have a conversation about what do you want to tell, even if I'm talking about this story about this Caribbean kind of like brothers, and like their kind of like story, and like the little things that are really intrinsic to them, and so like referencing to, like, the British flag, or like little ornaments, and like like little teapots and things like that they would have, like it's really, really important for me to go, oh, what do you want to do? How do you want your story to be told? Like, what do you want to add to this? What do you want to bring to this? And if I don't work with people who aren't going to bring anything to the table, and I don't work with people who just want to make my vision. I want to work with people who I like really understand the collaborative process that is filmmaking. Otherwise, you're just dictating. I don't think I'm a director, but I don't think I'm a dictator.
Interesting. So it's a very like symbiotic relationship with everybody on the team. That's super, super interesting. And I guess, yeah, my next two questions are just about you being a creative and this year as a whole. And I guess being a creative in London has its pros and cons. So what is your favourite thing about being a creative in London, and what is your worst?
I don't really. Being a creative in London, the best thing I probably would be, like, I'm surrounded by amazing talent, like actually amazing, amazing, amazing talent. They, filmmakers that I really love and respect. I think the London scene has now become a scene, or the British scene anyway, it's become one where people are ready. I think people are ready to take the chance on telling meaningful stories and meaningful kind of like films, and we're just ready to take that next step. And I'm excited. I'm excited to be part of them. I'm excited to be one of those people who is going to take that next step to create really amazing stories that haven't been told before. Like, regardless who the subject matter is, regardless who those people are, just tell like stories that feel unique. But the worst thing, I guess, is probably locations, like filming on a small budget, and sometimes your locations have been banged out by other filmmakers, and it just feels like sickly sometimes. Like you've already done that, you've already done all these locations, you've already seen them done by other people. So how do you make your stories kind of like more kind of like last and be feel good? But I think in general, I love being a London filmmaker. I love being like born and raised in here. I think there's a melting pot of different creatives and cultures. And I'm excited. I'm excited to see what filmmaking is all about, like, going forward.
Yeah, wicked. No, I definitely agree. I think, yeah, London's definitely got to a point. Oh, yeah, well, I guess, yeah, as you said, the whole of the UK, where there has just been an influx of people being unapologetic, experimental, and yeah, it just seems like a real good time to be a creative at the moment. Okay, so I've got two more questions. And with 2020 being the year all of this madness has happened, how has your practice adapted to what has happened at large? Adapted, sorry.
Yeah. Um, I don't really know whether it's changed. Like for me, I think I've become I'm a very insular person. I love to read. I love to read about filmmakers. I love to read about stories. And I think it's allowed me, especially in lockdown, to be able to just understand my style and understand the level of what I want to do next and what I want to take. How do I want to take my work? But really, like I'm probably like very. This is might be a little bit controversial, but I always see that like right now is definitely a blip to how I see my filmmaking. I see the world. Although I think it's important to reflect this time. It's not going to be the be all and end all. And I just feel like after this pandemic, I feel like hopefully, fingers crossed, that we don't just see an influx of like just COVID-19 films about like loneliness or whatever. But I will still feel like we can reflect the times in other ways, like with Black Lives Matter and like with what's going on in America, what's going on in Britain, you know, what's going on. Like I think Stephen Queen touches upon it so well when he talks about these themes of resistance, and I feel like all we can do now is just move the lens to people who need it, rather than telling the same old stories that have been done. So yeah.
Interesting. And my last final question, what would you wish you could say to your younger self before you embarked on your creative journey?
Okay, wow, that's a good one. A bunch of things, and this is to everyone that's watching. And like, you know, I think it's important whether you're a new creative, when you're, you know, or you've done, you know, you've made many films or whatever. I think it's important that do not try to curtail yourself and move yourself to be something that you're not, and don't make films that you feel like you want to make, but you don't really, you know, you kind of don't like them, but you're gonna make it because everyone thinks it's cool. I think now is the time that you like just rest and trust your instincts, and rest your like on your creative style, and understand that you are what you do, and who you are is enough for you to be a filmmaker, especially if you haven't gone to film school like I did. I didn't go to film school. And like you can tell your story, you can tell your vision. Be confident. Say no to a lot of things that you probably should have definitely said no to, but you didn't because you didn't listen to yourself. Trust your gut, and remember. I think I was speaking to Akin a couple of months ago, and I was just like talking to him, and like he just reminded me that filmmaking is supposed to be fun. So just make sure that you understand that you're not saving, you know, anyone's life, and you're not curing cancer, but you're creating visions and you're creating stories that wouldn't otherwise be told. So just remember that it's fun, it's good, and you should enjoy the process whilst you're doing it.
Wow, I think that was fantastic. Thank you so much again for just everything, like a very interesting presentation and just very authentic and depth responses to all of the questions. And I just hope you have a lovely rest of the evening. And yeah, thank you for being on this Upgrade Yourself inspiration.
Thank you, Coach, and thank you for having me, guys, for sure. Thank you.
I'll see you later. And for next week, sorry, Upgrade Yourself process workshops will process workshop with Nova Dando on visual communication and content creation, please sign up via the main website, and which is at somersethouse.org.uk. Sorry, I had to look at a wall to remember that one. But yes, that was a very, very fantastic presentation and chat. And I hope everybody who's been watching has enjoyed it. And we will see you at the next one. Goodbye, everyone.